What's up, Coordination? Today on the pod, we got Kimbal Musk. Kimbal is a legend here in Boulder, Colorado, where I live. Kimbal is a chef, an entrepreneur, and a community member, both in the meat space and now a community member in the DAO space. And he has started Big Green DAO, a DAO that has created millions of dollars of funding for up to 46 nonprofits who create food justice. So basically, since 2011, Kimbal's been helping teach people to grow food. Growing food improves nutrition security, mental health, increases time spent outdoors, and cultivates a deeper appreciation for our collective impact on the climate. Kimbal's been doing that IRL for the last 12 years or so, and COVID changed the way he approaches this philanthropic work. He is now building Big Green DAO, a DAO that supports schools, families, and communities across the country to grow their own food through training, grants, garden bed donations, and providing materials to the teachers and the growers who are building garden programs. I think that what's really interesting about Big Green DAO is the object level impact it's creating food justice for thousands of people across the world, but also Kimbal's perspective as a successful business person, having been involved in Tesla, having been involved in many internet age businesses, and the patterns that he sees in which he's trying to leverage to decentralize philanthropy with Big Green DAO. So really interesting episode. Always appreciate Kimbal Musk's perspective and the world that he wants to create, which is more food justice and using DAOs to scale the ability to do good in the world. So Coordination, really great episode for you today. Without further ado, I give you Kimbal Musk.
So you've got some money, but how are you going to use it? You want to spend.
Me, shopping now, bro.
When you know you should be saving.
You'll never buy a house at this rate.
But what if you could spend and save at the same time? For the enlightened kind, with inquiring minds, a new world awaits. Set yourself free with completely flexible, self-repaying loan technology. Supported on desktop and mobile. Seize the power of ALCHEMIX, allowing you to spend and save at the same time. Leverage your wealth without risk of liquidation. Take out a loan that repays itself. By using yield from your deposit to pay off your balance, your only debt is time. What was once inconceivable is now within your grasp.
You're winning some.
When you shop for plane tickets, you probably use Kayak, Expedia, or Google to compare ticket prices. So why would you limit yourself to just one exchange when you trade crypto? When you make your trades, you want to make sure you're getting the best possible price on your trade, and that's why you should be using MATCHA. MATCHA has smart order routing that splits your trade across all the various liquidity sources in Ethereum, and is also operational on Polygon, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, and other chains. Trading on MATCHA is super easy because it pools the liquidity for me in a single, easy-to-use platform and allows me to make limit on-chain orders, so you can set and forget your DeFi trades, and they will go through automatically while you're away. So when you're making a trade, head over to matcha.xyz/bankless and connect your wallet to start getting the best prices and most liquidity when you trade your crypto assets.
All right. Hey, Kimbal, how's it going?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. So excited to have you here to talk about Big Green DAO today. Tell us about Big Green DAO and how you got into food security.
You know, I have been working now in food for 22 years. My background was in technology with my brother. I have the wonderful honor of being part of the internet during its early days. And my brother and I built a company called Zip2 where we were the first kids, literally, I think the first people in the world to see door-to-door directions and maps on your computer. It really was extraordinary at the time, continues to be extraordinary. But so to be able to put our stamp on the internet that way is really cool. And after that, when we sold the company, I decided to go learn to be a cook because I wanted to be a chef. Food has always been my passion. Went to New York, learned to cook. Didn't really think I would open a restaurant, but I had the awful and also amazing experience of being in New York during 9/11, right after I graduated cooking school, and got a chance to cook for the firefighters for 6 weeks. Really changed my view on the world and how much community is created through food. In fact, it brings to me, really maybe the common theme of the Big Green DAO and what I experienced there was community. Seeing these firefighters come in from these giant piles of melting metal covered in dust. The chefs, me and a whole bunch of others who were just lucky to be volunteers. Frankly, there were so many people trying to volunteer, and we cook for them, and then they would come to life, and we would send them back out. That put their suits back on, go out in these giant piles of melting metal, literally melting weeks after 9/11, and to go dig through to save American lives. It was the most powerful experience that I had, up until that point for me, and got me into food. So then I opened a restaurant in Colorado, started supporting nonprofits working in helping kids connect to food. Then in 2010, had a personal, very serious accident where I was like, my life can end at any moment. I'm just going to double down on what I really care about, which is food and philanthropic work in food justice, which is not the same thing as food. Food justice is about equity and people getting access to food, whether it's for nutrition security or mental health, and led me to forming Big Green.
Amazing. It sounds like quite a journey, and it's really great to hear the backstory of how you became a chef and understood that community is built through food. And I think that the story of that leading up to Big Green DAO, is sort of special for me as a Boulderite. For those of us who are listening to this episode from across the world, you might not know, but Kimbal's restaurants in downtown Boulder, the kitchen upstairs, the kitchen next door, are a staple of how community is formed in Boulder. So you and I have that Boulder
It's really
connection.
Beautiful. How long have you been in Boulder?
I've been here since 2013.
Cool.
And have always liked going to the kitchen next door to hang out with friends on weekends.
Thank you. Yeah, it has become, our mission from the beginning was a community bistro, community through food. And we really are this wonderful community hub in town.
Amazing. Well, community, I think I want to talk about the parallels between community in person and online. And I think that my next question is a bridge towards that. So can you tell us about Big Green DAO and the why, the what, and the how of Big Green DAO?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what an exciting journey we've had. First of all, I want to thank all of the people in Web3 that are watching this to be so gracious and helpful in having someone like me, really a Web 1.0 guy, and then really been in Web 2.0. No, sorry, I skipped Web 2.0. I didn't get into social media or anything. I like to use Twitter, but other than that, I don't really play in that space. And so, again, focus on food and involved with my brother's companies, Tesla and SpaceX. But again, they're not web companies, So from a Web 1 to a Web 3 jump, it's a pretty big jump. And I just am so grateful for the warm welcome that I've gotten from everyone in the Web 3 community that I now count as I'm part of that. So the Big Green, we started out very successfully building these beautiful outdoor classrooms in schools around the country. School gardens had always worked when they worked, like when people used them. But the problem is they were always put in the corner of the schoolyard, and usually a teacher would retire or a passionate parent would graduate their kid, and then the garden would stop getting looked after. And you'd just have to put more and more money into it every year. And we decided to try a different approach, which was a more permanent, beautiful classroom that is edible schoolyard where kids grow food as they learn lessons, primarily science. So teaching science through the growing of food. We got up to, by 2020, by the time COVID hit, we got up to 650 schools around the country. These are $50,000 to $100,000 outdoor classrooms, like this big deal. And then 350,000 kids were being taught every school day in our classrooms. Really, I can't be more proud of the team and what we achieved. But when COVID hit, schools were shut down. We weren't allowed to, literally illegal to work on school grounds, and it continues to be so today, even 2 years later. But for a year and a half, we weren't even allowed to do our work at all. And so it was around then that I started to just talk about, well, how could I help in other ways? How could we at Big Green, who really are experts now in the space. I mean, we've been working hard on the ground, Detroit, Chicago, LA, Pittsburgh, Memphis. I mean, some of the toughest neighborhoods in the country, and doing good things, but also realizing that this problem is way bigger than anything Big Green could possibly solve, which is kids learn to eat really bad food from a very young age. Kids go into kindergarten in these neighborhoods. Sometimes I believe over 40% of kids go into kindergarten obese. That is not something that they did to themselves. That is something we did to them. And how do we help? How do we help now that we can't do our gardens anymore? And so we, to be clear, we do support our gardens that are in schools today. We provide them financial resources to continue to look after them. But because we couldn't travel, because we had to really operate from not even an office. I mean, we don't have an office anymore, Big Green. Web3 kind of was this magical solution that came along right when we needed it. And Web3 is this way to build community without a physical presence. So we have people from all over the world, primarily the United States, but people also from all over the world that are on our Discord discussing in their language. So we have a Chinese channel, we have a Turkish channel, we have a Greek channel, we have a Korean channel, and it is just incredible to watch them talk about the challenge of food justice in their communities. And Web3 enables us to build this community without the need for physical presence. That being said, our community wants physical connection, so we now meet once a quarter in person. Our previous meeting was in Atlanta. The one before that was in Denver. The one coming up will be probably be in Colorado. We're not sure. It'll be in July and August. And the desire for these folks to travel from mostly from the United States, but really also from around the world, is just incredible. Really, really incredible. We are now a 19-person DAO, and in Atlanta, we probably had 30 people show up, even people who didn't have voting rights yet or were not able to participate because we're still kind of growing this slowly. They're like, that's fine. We just want to be there. And it enabled us. What we did was we had a lot of financial support from our donors, and we needed to figure out how to provide that financial support without physically being in a location. So, for example, we want to help someone in Detroit, in a suburb of Detroit. In our previous world, in a pre-COVID world, we would either fly to Detroit or we'd have someone there locally, and in fact, we had an office there, and we'd get to know those people, and we would determine how good they are and whether or not we can help them financially. In a Web3 world, you decentralize that. You give voting rights to people who can pick the nonprofits to support in Detroit, for example, and then you also decentralize accountability. So in a year from now, when that nonprofit wants to ask for more money, okay, well, what's the community say about how are they doing? And all of that is done through Discord. And what's beautiful about it is the Web3, the DAO, the actual DAO part is it's all transparent. So we know exactly where the dollars go. We know exactly how voting rights work. Look, they might not be perfect. We might have to change them, but at least you know how they work. You have a trustless system that enables you to build amazing levels of trust. Because if you were to ever leave the DAO, you understand how you would be removed or you might choose to leave. But there's no one person who could violate your rights or take it away from you. It's been profound. And so as a result, we've now given away almost $1 million up until the end of March. And now we're about to give away up to another $860,000. We have 46 applications for this quarter. Just so people know how the DAO works, many DAOs are done very differently to us. So what we did was we started with this concept of progressively decentralizing. And it's a concept that Matthew Markman came up with. He's an architect of our DAO, amazing human, and you can find him on Twitter. He just has this academic view on things rather than what I did see a lot in Web3 was really too speculation focused, and that's not. I don't want to judge it, but that wasn't what we're doing. We're philanthropy, so he really helped me create something that was how do we do good things. So we started with 6 nonprofits, rockstar nonprofits that Big Green knew really well, and one of them is Big Green, and five others, 3 African Americans, 1 Native American from the Cochiti tribe, and 1 Hispanic, amazing woman, and then 1 person from Big Green. And they voted to bring on 10 new nonprofits last quarter. And now we added some donors, including myself. I got a vote this time, which is really cool. Which, by the way, is really cool. Like, I gave up my vote in the beginning, and then they gave me one back. And like, I think that's really cool. Now I feel obliged to vote, of course, which is exciting. But you're like, oh my goodness, my decisions matter. I mean, it's really cool. And you guys at Gitcoin have been an invaluable resource in teaching us how to vote effectively and assign dollars and so forth. But we're going to potentially bring up to 46 nonprofits. The 46 have applied. That doesn't mean we would choose all 46, but we have funding for all 46. It would just be based on how much money they get and who gets more and less. And you've really taught me this concept of quadratic funding, and I've heard about quadratic voting, and really is wonderful to see it in action. It's very hard to explain in words. And then when you see it in action, it's really fun. It's a fun, not a game, I wouldn't call it a game, but it's because we're taking your advice. We're not doing voting on one day. We're doing it over a week or 10 days. You get to vote, and every additional vote you give a nonprofit is worth a little bit less. And then you finish up, and then you go to the Discord and you discuss a little, and then you go back to your voting, and you can change your vote because you've learned a bit more. And then over the week, you kind of have this collaboration that is created, and that's come back to community. It comes back to this amazing power that Web3 has, that is really different to the Web 2,
Right.
Web 1, or even non-Web world, where everything kind of pushes you towards collaborating, pushes you towards community, pushes you towards building relationships. And I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's hard not to see the symmetry between what you said about learning about how community gathers through food and how community has gathered around Big Green DAO. Can you tell us a little bit about the symmetries or what's different about the digital versus the physical communities you've built?
That's a great question. I don't think anyone's asked me that. I think that in the case of food, especially eating out at a restaurant where you're maybe meeting someone for the first time, or you're doing a business deal with someone, and you kind of need neutral ground, right? And when you go sit down at the restaurant, you might order a cocktail, and you might just relax the barrier, and then you kind of get to know someone a little bit more. And then by the end of that meal, you've spent a couple of hours with someone, whether it's a first date with someone or your anniversary with your husband or wife, or whether it's a business relationship. You know that person much, much more, and it was enabled by eating in this restaurant. That is just one of the magical, frankly, the reason I'm in it. And when you apply it to Big Green DAO, what we see is something similar, where people come together because there's a selfish reason, of course. They want to get funded, great, or they might want to donate and have their philanthropy go to a food justice cause. And I mean, it's a very nice version of selfish, but they're doing it for their own reasons. And then when they're there, the same thing kind of happens as it happens in a restaurant. You might post something on Discord, you might do a quick vote here and there, and then you get connected with someone else who might be voting similarly to you, and you might want to ask them some questions. You don't get to see each other's vote, but you can ask questions about one nonprofit or another, and that required conversation. It's not really optional. You can choose not to involve at all, but if you choose to be engaged, these conversations are kind of required. You kind of have to talk to each other, and then one barrier gets broken down after the other, and all of your rights are protected through the DAO governance. So you can say things that might really piss people off, and because you really mean it, or you're passionate about it, and no one can take your rights away. And that has been wonderful to see, the conversations amongst, the passionate conversations where people really want to do good things here, and they also know the responsibility they have. If they succeed, they meaning, and I'm now part of it, if we at Big Green DAO succeed at showing that this is a more effective, more transparent, more efficient use of philanthropy, people have no idea how big this could get. I mean, philanthropy in America is $500 billion a year. $500 billion just in America. And so you start to say, well, we won't get all of that. Okay, that's fine. I'm sure there's lots and lots of philanthropy out there that will stay in the more traditional ivory tower approach. But this is a decentralized approach, and it'll start taking some market share. And you even get to 0.001%, and you're really up there in money. And you guys at Gitcoin have really shown us how much is possible. I mean, the dollars you guys have pushed through in such a short period of time is really an inspiration for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I see some great symmetries between Gitcoin DAO and Big Green DAO, which is both creating financial tools, quadratic voting, in order to create object level impact. And I just want to revisit that object level impact before we continue the conversation. I think you said a little bit north of $1 million has been deployed at Big Green DAO. How many mouths does that feed, and for how long?
So the way Big Green DAO works is the recipients are like one of them is a nonprofit in Atlanta that works with young kids. She might have a few hundred kids that she helps work with. We have another guy who is in Denver, amazing what do you call it, a cultural leader in Denver, and he reaches many more people. Then in the Native American community, it's we're talking many thousands of people, but we're not focused on providing food. We're focused on enabling food justice warriors to be more financially supported.
Right.
These are people that already receive a lot of support, and it's more like, okay, well, now that you've received financial support from a major foundation, great.
Right.
Well, how does it work when you receive funding from a community? And that is very cool and new for all of the players.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's just so promising because this cause is so noble. And I think that one of the things that I really see in you, Kimbal, is that you're disrupting philanthropy using decentralization tech. And the nonprofit sector is so stagnant that I think you said that there's billions of dollars that are going through that sector. I mean, how much does this scale? How does Web3 scale, do you think, in order to disrupt nonprofits and create even more of that object level impact across the world?
I love that question. So the beautiful thing about Web3 is, if scale is something that is important to you, I don't think there is a better platform. And so if you think about Big Green DAO and the very nature of what we're doing, if you try to do this centrally, in other words, we're going to add 46 nonprofits this quarter, the next quarter we'll add another 100, and we're going to bring on another 1,000 donors, and we have almost 2,000 donors on board. The amount of staff that we would need to process that, it would be tens of people this, maybe 100 people this quarter. We'd need 1,000 people within a year from now. And we have no hiring plan at all, because this is all now done by the community. So if we were to go from 10 million this year to 100 million next year and $1 billion a year after that, there's no further overhead. In fact, the overhead maybe, relatively speaking in dollars, maybe negligible, because you do $100 million through and it only still costs you a few $100,000 to run this DAO. The more money you put through it, the better, the more efficient it is. So I think that really that's one of the great things about Web3, because if we wanted to do this, and I've had this question on, so I do these Twitter Spaces every now and then on a Sunday evening, and in fact, thank you, you were on it actually recently, and what I find there, I get a question from people who are skeptics of Web3, and they'll say, well, why don't you just run this on a spreadsheet? Like, why do you need Web3? And the answer really is just about scale. Yes, you can run this on a spreadsheet for a little while, and then once you get to, I don't know, even this quarter, which is only 6 months in, you can't run it on a spreadsheet anymore. You just can't. Like, this is now, this would be an accounting nightmare and a grant making nightmare to grow that fast in the philanthropic world. And I can speak very personally to that. I am a donor. In fact, I donated to Gitcoin's climate change round. I know how much time it takes for me to evaluate an opportunity. Because I want to do a good job, I do take that time. If I said to myself and maybe my wife, and we said, this quarter I want to support 46 nonprofits, the idea is laughable. There's no way. I don't have the time or energy to do that. And then I got to go hire a team, and then they got to be trained up. Whereas now with 46 nonprofits and using Web3 tools, I'm very excited about it. It might take me a few hours to participate as the voter, but there are another 18 other voters, and I'm very excited about that. That's very cool.
ReFi summer has arrived, and CELO is here for it. CELO is the layer 1 blockchain for the regenerative finance movement. It's fast, planet positive, and built for the real world. CELO has committed towards producing a sustainable future from the very beginning, and is the world's first carbon negative, EVM compatible layer 1 blockchain. CELO has become much more than a technology, a currency, a community, or even just a layer 1. CELO is a movement to create conditions of prosperity for everyone. You can soon engage with all of this via green asset Uniswap pools on CELO, benefiting reforestation and other regenerative products through the Toucan protocol, Moss, and more. ReFi is also about the health of communities, and Resource Network is creating bankless infrastructure for circular trade and mutual credit networks to benefit small businesses and local economies, all on CELO. Follow along on Twitter to learn more about how CELO is accelerating ReFi summer for a positive impact on people, communities, and the planet. If you're attending ECC, visit the CELO Saloon to learn about what's happening on the front lines of ReFi from industry experts. OPOLIS is a member-owned digital employment cooperative offering payroll, health insurance, and membership perks that go beyond the basics that you would find at your normal 9-to-5. OPOLIS offers not only health benefits, but also pay stubs and W-2s, workers' comp, and unemployment insurance, as well as disability benefits for independent DAO workers that are traditionally reserved for regular employment situations. OPOLIS provides a tax-compliant way to get your paycheck in crypto and professionalize your work-life situation. OPOLIS members enjoy an average of 20 to 50% savings on top-rated national group health insurances, as well as self-sovereign portable employment. You can also get tokenized rewards based on consumption, staking, and referrals, and also the ability to fund payroll in fiat and stablecoins without the use of centralized exchange. You can also receive paychecks in fiat and whitelisted digital currencies. So sign up for OPOLIS today and get 1,000 work and 1,000 bank tokens when you become a member of OPOLIS by May 25th, 2022, and get started working your self-sovereign life.
Yeah, so it seems like you're first off, thank you for giving to Gitcoin grants. We really appreciate your contribution to the climate round. I think it's so incredible to hear from you, an experienced philanthropist, how Web3 allows you to scale. There's no team to hire because you're kind of pushing the signal generation of which projects are worth funding to the edges, and you're kind of with your community deciding how to evaluate an opportunity together. And so I got to ask Kimbal, what do you think of DAOs in general? I mean, is this a future category of human organization? And what are you excited about with DAOs, and what are you not excited about when it comes to the category of DAOs in general?
It's so funny. There's that term, the converted person is the greatest fanatic. I can't remember exactly the term, but
yeah.
If you can convert someone, they become the greatest fanatic. And that was me. When I started this process, frankly, I didn't really start it. It was a bunch of my friends who were working in Web3 that kept bugging me to give it a try. And when it came to philanthropy, that they were really talking about that. They were just saying, Kimbal, you should pay attention here. There's some really interesting things going on. These are all smart people who I trust. So I was like, okay, I'll spend a little time working on it. But I was skeptical. And then I learned about this concept of a DAO where you can decentralize governance. You can make it you can make it totally transparent. You can enshrine people's rights similar to the US Constitution, but actually in a smart contract where there's zero people to intervene because it's not possible. So I became the greatest fanatic. I think that DAOs are absolutely fascinating human experiments. I do think that DAOs have their place. There was probably a time when I thought DAOs could do everything, because I drank the Kool-Aid, and then I said, well, in the case of Big Green DAO, as I was designing the architecture with Markman, we started to game it out, and we're like, oh, wait a minute, you can't probably do that. Oh, you can't probably do that. Okay, so what should we do here? And I gotta say, we put our 10,000 hours into the governance of the Big Green DAO, and really encourage anyone who's curious about DAOs to go to dao.biggreen.org and download the white paper and give it a read. And you will learn so much there. Our DAO is not perfect for all applications, probably not perfect for our application, but it's going really well. So I would say it's a lot you can learn from there. And so I would say that I went through that process of the DAO. A DAO could be used for anything. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, a DAO is useful, very, very useful for certain things. And those certain things are when does decentralization actually help you? And like a good example, I don't want to knock climate change because you obviously did your round with Bitcoin and I supported it. So don't get me wrong here. I get approached all the time for a DAO on climate change. And my question back to them is, how is decentralizing decision-making helping that? Because you got to deal with governments. You probably need a representative in DC, a lobbyist, or the United Nations. I mean, I just don't know. Maybe there's a way a DAO could help, but I just don't know. Nothing comes to mind. And then one of these amazing nonprofits working in deforestation, climate change as it relates to deforestation, came to me, and I was like, oh, well, that would be an obvious one where a DAO would be fantastic, because deforestation happens on the edges of the Amazon forest, or it happens in northern Canada or Alaska, or it happens in Indonesia, and you really benefit from decentralized decision making, because someone in Indonesia can help decide what's going on there on the ground with the palm trees being grown there and destroying the forest there, or in the farmland of Acre, Brazil. Okay, I get it. That's going to be amazing for a DAO. And then what I've also learned is this concept of decentralized accountability. And that is another great example. In Big Green DAO, that way that works is when someone in Detroit wants to apply again for another round, we'll have members of the DAO in Detroit help us make that decision. In the case of deforestation, it's super valuable because people in Brazil or in those communities will be able to say, yeah, this actually did stop deforestation. And so it's not just the decision making, it's the accountability that makes DAOs so valuable, especially when it is useful to have decentralized decision making and decentralized accountability.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So it sounds like where decentralized accountability and decentralization sort of add value, that's where you're a proponent of DAOs. I'm curious, what you think of the category of impact DAOs in general. We're starting to sort of think about how Web3 can be created for impact, and like what would have to be true for impact DAOs to disrupt nonprofits and NGOs and become a top 5 or top 10 charitable giving or charitable organization in the future. I guess another way of asking this is, what does the world look like where you're maximally successful, Kimbal, in creating Big Green DAO and having as much impact as possible?
I love that question. People look at me and they see me disrupting things. Whether it's my first business, disrupting Yellow Pages, or Big Green, doing this thing here. It's actually it's way less dramatic than people realize. So the way I would encourage anyone who's forming a DAO to think about it is, what do you need to do today? What do you need to do next month? What do you need to do the next 3 months? And make sure you're doing those things correctly. And then make sure you approximately have a 50-year goal, right? So let's imagine Big Green DAO has a 50-year goal of showing the world that giving DAOs where philanthropy can be used through DAOs in an effective way. Great. And that means like $100 billion a year goes through philanthropic DAOs. Wow, that would be a wonderful fingerprint to have on or legacy to have in the world. But actually, that's kind of put aside. What matters is, this quarter, will we bring on great nonprofits that will do really good things, and will they join the DAO and vote on the next round? That's what matters. And if you get too caught up in the long-term vision, I know that it's cool and fun to think that way, but actually you end up losing sight on how to truly disrupt, which is doing good things, actually showing good progress on a day-to-day basis, and keeping your eye very close to the ground on that. And just know in the back of your mind that if you do good things, you will change the world, no matter what you do.
Got it. Amazing. I think that your point there about just making sure that you're focused on the road in front of you is so important for us who are working on the impact DAOs and dreaming big, because it's really about that day-to-day execution that's going to make it happen. And I know that I've seen that in the last 5 years as I've been building Gitcoin. I think that we're coming up on time in the next 10 minutes or so. So I'd love to just ask a totally open-ended question. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to tell us, Kimbal?
Well, I think the most fun part for me is being an old person in Web3. This is just fun, right? So I started in the internet and back in 1994. So this is actually Mozilla had just come out, but pre Netscape and the whole thing. And so people who know those times, very very few people were believers in the internet. And I remember working with my brother on this idea of creating a yellow page business online where you do this crazy thing. You would type in the name of I want a restaurant or I want dry cleaning. And we would not just tell you the name of the businesses around you. We'd show you a map of where they were. We'd give you door-to-door directions to their location. To me, it was like so obvious that this is going to change the world. And everyone is going to want to use this versus the paper yellow pages. And I'm in a meeting with a guy who is probably my age, 40, late 40s, early 50s. And he was the owner of the Yellow Pages in Toronto, Canada. And I'm in the middle of my presentation showing him this incredible technology that's going to change his business, frankly, his business. And he stops the meeting and he picks up the Yellow Pages, which is big city, right? So a good 3-inch thick Yellow Pages. And he throws it at me. And he says, do you ever think you're going to replace this? And in 2 years, his business was a zero.
Wow. The hubris.
And so I just remember that. And so when I think of being an old guy in Web3, I want to be a better old person.
Right. Got it. So it seems like if you're not mindful of the disruption that could be coming your way, then if you're not on that alpha, if you're not on that frontier, then you're vulnerable to people who are on the frontier. And this is kind of a way of staying sharp in a way. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Staying sharp, being super humble, believing that the world can change at any moment. And you don't want to be caught, sitting back, drinking a Mai Tai, thinking you got it all figured out, because that's just not how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, young people, for sure in the past few decades, are the leaders. If you were pre-internet days, maybe old people were the leaders. But in the internet and technology and Web3 days, young people are the leaders. And that is very cool. So for me, I'm here to learn. I am here to join the community and do good things one step at a time, try not to mess it up. And as we all know, we're playing with fire in many ways, but if we do good things and be very, very thoughtful, we are going to have a wonderful, the Web3 community, are going to have a wonderful, positive impact on the world.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful. I guess, do you have any advice for any of the regen Web3 people out there? How do we build this into a movement? I would love it if in the next 3 years, regen Web3 and impact DAOs were what the public knew about with respect to Web3, and we could sort of subsume the more speculative uses of this technology and create more of that object level impact on everyday humans. Like, do you have any advice for someone, for us as we're trying to engineer this movement and whip up that action?
Yeah, I definitely. First of all, I have a view on speculation that is maybe not as bad as other people, where it serves a role, right? So I'm in this space because I believe it adds a lot of value to the world. You're in the space for the same reason. Anyone who's working on a giving DAO or a philanthropic DAO or an impact DAO is doing it because they want to make a positive impact on the world. But the speculators also bring a lot of capital to the table. So I'm not here to knock those guys. But the thing that I would really recommend, which again comes back to community, is to learn from the other giving DAOs. So in the case of Gitcoin, we have learned at Big Green DAO. We cannot thank you enough for being so open and here to teach us how to do quadratic funding or quadratic voting, or working with Othello, your recommendation on voting using a quadratic funding approach. There is no way we would have come up with that by ourselves. No way. Zero chance. And so being able to leverage the learnings of other DAOs, get to know them, get to know Gitcoin, get to know Big Green DAO, I hope our voting is relatively public. You can't vote, of course, unless you have a token, but I believe it's public. And so you can see how the voting's going. You can read the white paper, you can join the Discord, and learn from everyone and anyone, because the more mistakes you can learn from other people, the less you're going to make yourself.
Right. Beautiful. Let's see, Kimbal. I think that's probably about the end of the episode. Where can people find you online if they want to get involved in the movement? And how can they join Big Green DAO?
So my Twitter is @Kimbal, Kimbal, and there are 2 ways to join Big Green DAO. One is to make a donation. There's no minimum donation to join the Discord. There's 1 Ethereum minimum to be a voter. And then if you're a nonprofit, you can join the Discord without any charge at all, and you just apply. So please do that. If you are a impact DAO or a giving DAO out there that wants to learn from us, I recommend you join the Discord as a, donate $1 and join in there. And if you get excited and you think it works, donate an ETH and become a voter, because man, you will learn so much, and we would also welcome you into our community.
Beautiful. So check out Big Green DAO, everyone. And Kimbal Musk, thanks so much for being on the pod.
Thank you again, Kevin, for all your help, and thank you for having me on today.